Question Veritas with honor, respect, and gratitude. Welcome everyone to our high frequency living tonight, our quantum light property clearing chronicles session tonight here on Lota of the Sun YouTube channel. And tonight we will be talking about protection in our sacred spaces. I am Diane of the Sun, owner of Inlika Studio One, a franchise of the Sun. And joining me tonight is Tavares of the Sun, Lauren of the Sun, and Tiffany of the Sun. So welcome. It's going to be a very robust session tonight. We have lots and lots of stories to talk with you about. So a few announcements before we get started. High Frequency Living offers live streams which focus on high frequency living lifestyle topics and of the Sun classes and modalities. And each week we have some live streams and podcasts. And the live streams are on Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern with Lauren of the Sun for Flowers and Frequency. On Wednesdays at noon, our midday meditations with myself. Thursdays at noon are Tavares and Lota with Call for the Truth podcast. And they've been covering the Of the Sun tenets recently. And then Fridays, we have a rotating schedule. So next Friday will be the first Friday of July. And so that will be our Inlika Studio One's Evolutionary Book Club. And we will be discussing The Never-Ending Story by Michael Ende. So hope you can join us then. And upcoming classes in July will be on the website soon, I think, if they're not there yet. I know Tavares has some July classes coming forward with Lota and Tavares. So you can always check out the website ofthesun.com for all those classes. And so that wraps up our announcements. And I invite you to join me calling for the highest possible vibration. Shall we call for the highest possible vibration? Shall we call for the highest possible vibration? Shall we call for the highest possible vibration? And shall we call for the truth? Shall we call to see the truth in all things? Shall we call to hear the truth in all that we hear? Shall we have the courage to speak the truth and accept nothing less than the truth in all of our experiences? So welcome once again to our Quantum Light Property Clearing Chronicles. So Tavares, did you want to start with some information about our topic tonight?
Yes, most certainly. So first off, ladies, it's always a pleasure to be with you on Friday. We're hanging out. And so quantum light property clearing. And by the way, I just want to double check. Is there any lag coming in on my end, or am I coming in smooth? Okay, beautiful. Right. So quantum light property clearing, sacred space, protection. So this is a very interesting concept because, it comes from a quote from Lota: "May everywhere you place your feet be sacred space." And, this is like one of the hallmarks of quantum light property clearing. However, as humans, we don't really know what sacred space is. We haven't really experienced it. And I know within my own experience, it wasn't until understanding what's really happening in the fields, in our environments, that are occupying the spaces and broadcasting, that is creating contamination, spaces that are not so sacred, but they feel more of like a toilet or, something that's just not really uplifting, essentially. And so we're going to be diving into this evening, under the understandings of how quantum light property clearing can assist you with creating sacred space in your home, in public venues, when you're visiting family, Thanksgiving, those family trips, when you're commuting to restaurants. This idea of taking it everywhere you go, and ultimately it creates a form of protection. And so there's so many different concepts that we can touch on this evening. And we think that this is going to be very robust. So I'm looking forward to it again. And I want to lay down some foundation, especially for the listeners, people who are tuning in, because when it comes to protection, uh, there's a call for the truth divination card, and we utilize this for the intro of our energetic protection and defense class. And the maxim reads, you protect yourself, excuse me, the maxim reads, you protect yourself by knowing who you are. Know who you are. And so the only way we can effectively protect ourselves is by having a clear foundation on exactly who the heck are we. So I ask you, who are you? People in the comments, in the chat, let us know, who are you? But I'll tell you who I am. And I think that my fellow clearers will agree with it. But I understand that I am a multidimensional electromagnetic being. I'm luminous. I'm biophotonic. I'm photosynthetic. And I receive information from the field. I transduce that information or process it, and then I broadcast it out. And the reality is that this is how every human functions. Much like the technology that we see and give credence to and think that it's so great, it's a mimicry of us in the basic functions and mechanics of our field. And so the wild thing about this is that spaces and places have the same exact function, where the spaces are broadcasting, the spaces are transducing and integrating via imprints. And so there's this relationship that's happening with the occupants of spaces and the space itself based upon this foundational mechanics. So this is something that's so important to understand out the gate, that uh, we are constantly functioning like a biological receiver and transmitter. And so with this foundation, the next concept I want to go into is the holographic nature of reality, because what's inside of us will be mirrored outside of us. And this is included with spaces and places. Our homes, for example. So if we are walking around with depression, sadness, we're going to have that mirrored back. And most certainly in our spaces and places, it will be impressed and reinform us. And so when people are trying to raise their frequency, when they're looking to pop themselves into a higher uh, positive disposition, make some life changes, it's hard to do it because you have the space pulling you back into the old patterns. So literally, it's like you're being attacked by your space, attacked via the broadcast of thought forms and emotions that were charged and impressed against the energetic field of the walls, the floors, the material. Maybe you were crying in bed, maybe you had an argument, maybe you had a bout of depression, maybe there was addiction, and you decide to pop out of it. But then the field, because the behavior was habitual, perpetuated, it reinforms us with the same thing that we're trying to break out of. So it is very similar to like being attacked. And so sometimes people don't feel comfortable in their own homes. Just like sometimes we might go to spaces and places and venues and they don't quite feel comfortable, something can feel off. And let us know for anybody who's tuning in the chat, have you ever noticed gravitational pull in spaces and places where, like, essentially the space oh, I'm getting a message saying that there's lag.
Yes, just a little lag there.
All right, so I'm going to conclude this idea, and then I'm going to pass the baton, and then I'll go ahead and make a slight little adjustment. But the point is that there is gravitational pull that occurs in our spaces and places. And this is something that we can offset to protect ourselves or protect the sanctity of our frequency by offsetting it via quantum light property clearing. So I'm going to pass the baton to one of you all. I'm going to address this lag. And yeah, someone jump in like, what do you call that? Double Dutch.
I'll jump in.
Yes.
So, so absolutely, this is very important, and this is something that we all, as Tavares was saying, we've all had these experiences where we can feel into these frequencies. And what is so important, and something that I have learned as a property clearer and over time, is that property clearing and the modality of being a property clearer, but starting out just from being a client of property clearing, this is a modality that helped me look deeper and start to recognize and see these within my conscious mind. Because, yes, we have these experiences, we have these feelings, but what do we do about them? I spent the majority of my life leaning into it and then just kind of keep going. and so that's not the solution because it's still there. And so the understanding is, with this, having the understanding of quantum light property clearing and receiving the benefit of it and feeling in to the cleanliness and the light and the uplifting experience from the byproduct of the clearing, you awaken. You feel lighter, you feel difference, you feel life. And that's a good feeling. So to take that understanding and that energy and be able to, because I have my space clear, my house is clear now, I can start my day and move about my day in my practices, knowing that I have been fortified, and I can then get into my car, which is clear, and then I can clear my path, and then my travels to where I'm going are clear, and then my engagements to who I'm speaking with are clear. And then, because I have that knowingness, because it started within me, where I'm stepping, I'm leaving a little bit of myself. And so that is all inspired from the byproduct of being clear. And this is what quantum light property clearing brings forward to us. And I know we'll go into many different understandings about this, but Tiffany or Diane, did either one of you have anything to share in with that?
I did, yes. And I think that this idea of taking ownership of ourselves is first and foremost. Because I remember, kind of like what you were saying, Lauren, I used to just move through life. I would have whatever thoughts I would have. Then I would either be upset or be angry or be frustrated and just move on to the next thought without clearing that negative low vibrational thought. But when we recognize that every single space we step is sacred space, it forces us, or encourages us, that might be a better word, it encourages us to take ownership for the thoughts that we're thinking. And, the universe doesn't differentiate between what we think, what we say, what we listen to, what we watch. And so we're imprinting all of these concepts, these emotions, these ideas, these interactions everywhere we step. So if you're frustrated, if you haven't cleared yourself, if you haven't cleared your path, and you're frustrated before you go to the grocery store, you're walking down the aisle where food is living that's supposed to be nourishing us, and you're imprinting frustration or anger or sadness. And then all these people are buying food that is layered and layered and layered in a grocery store with all these people walking around, rushing, being frustrated, instead of everyone recognizing and being in that space of gratitude and that glory that they're in a grocery store that has all of this food that's nourishing, that we could talk to and thank, and just being in a space of reverence and thankfulness for that which nourishes us, instead of being so caught up in our minds of the hustle and bustle of driving there and the frustration that might have brought. And so when I think and when I teach people about the idea that every place you step is sacred space, it so much comes back to the ownership that we must take for our own thoughts, for our own actions, and recognizing that we do imprint it everywhere that we go. Every house that I have cleared, literally, I've cleared thousands, and every single one of them, there are negative thought forms that have been imprinted in the couch, in the walls, in the floor, in the dog, in the front yard, from the energy or the thoughts or the music or the TV shows that the people have been engaging with. And so I actually cleared this property one time. I'll never forget it. I told the people after I cleared it that there was a ton of anger in their front yard. That's not a normal thing. Like, I don't know if I've ever cleared a property with anger that had to be cleared from the front yard. So I'm giving the report and I say, yes, there's anger in the front yard, had to be cleared. And they just start laughing, the couple that lived there. And they said, I can't believe that that's what you're picking up and had to clear away, because there have been massive brawls in our front yard over this tree that everyone disagrees with. And there, she said, when we first moved in here, there were drag out fights in the front yard about this tree. And and she said every time she walked in the front yard, she could feel that anger, kind of like what you were talking about, Lauren, when you walk into the room and you can feel that. But she could feel that anger. And so once it was cleared, it allowed the experience of the tree to live in peace there. It allowed the experience of the neighbors to not be at odds with each other. And for the people who were in the home connected to that yard to have a different sense of peace. And so that was, I know I said a lot there, but that was just what came to mind.
Well, I love that you brought that forward because that's such an excellent example to help us understand that also the idea of service. Because we all are living in a shared space, regardless, wherever we go. That we're on a planet, we share the planet. and so this is the whole of our experience. And to look at it from that perspective that it is our responsibility. So what is happening next door is part of our experience. If we are hearing it, seeing it, feeling it, and to allow ourselves to look into this idea of service as part of our purpose. We are here to be of support to the whole of this experience, and quantum light property clearing is that. So whether you are a quantum light property clearer or whether you are just engaging with the modality and have a clearing of your space, this is an act of service. So that goes back to the accountability, that goes back to the whole responsibility, right? And so this idea for us to step into that client of yours saw the understanding of anger, felt it, and at some level, consciously, subconsciously, got the download to get the clearing and call you. And then you see it, clear it, and then it clears for the whole of the experience. So the imprint and the memory is gone. So one of the most wonderful things, and I know we've all had experiences like this, Diane, I know you've had several you've shared with me too, where we're just going about our day. And because we are clears, we see something, and it's brought to our attention that, okay, that could use a clearing. Because everywhere we put shall be sacred space. We are part of that ground crew that Lota has so brilliantly shared with us, that we are here clearing. So because it's come forward to our attention, we have an opportunity to clear it. And so we're inspired then to go deeper, to be of service and clear that, not only for us, but for everyone else. And so I think that's one of the most wonderful understandings of how brilliant this modality is. It brings us back to the truth.
It's so true. If I may just jump back in really quickly here, Lauren, what you just said happened to me fairly recently. And when you clear, you get cleared, right? And so then you recognize what Lauren's saying, that when you are clear and you're sitting somewhere and you realize something that isn't cleared, that needs to be cleared, you naturally clear it. And there are so many different ways to clear it, right? You don't have to necessarily have taken the property clearing class to clear the negative energy that's happening next to you. There are so many ways to move out what's not serving the experience of you or those around you or the birds or the bees or the air or the trees. And so I was sitting at, I don't know if I shared this last month, I can't remember when this happened, but like a month or two ago, I was sitting at a class for Jade. My daughter had a theater class, and normally all different parents are there watching, and the moms are all chatting it up while the kids are in theater, and the door is closed so we can see them through the window, but we can't hear them, and they can't hear us necessarily. And this day, no one was there but me. And I sat there for a little while. I did some meditation. And then all of a sudden, a car pulled in, and it was a mom and her daughter. And the little one was probably about 2 years old. And she just started crying and crying and crying and crying. And I could tell that, obviously she was suffering and the mom was suffering. And it was, interrupting my meditation as well. So I was suffering, right? But I immediately, my instant reaction was to send her the frequencies of oneness and truth, and of in Lakesh and Veritas. So she knew, and so the child who was screaming was able to feel that, the understanding and that connection of humanness that we all share when you're frustrated and you don't know how to communicate it, and or when you're hungry, or when you're wet because you peed your pants, or whatever it may be. And so I started to do that, and then all of a sudden a bee flew in front of me, and I started to hum, and I just sat there and I was like, and she couldn't hear me. I could hear her loud and clear, but it was so subtle. And as I hummed, which is also a clearing modality, you can clear yourselves by looking at the bees and hearing the hum. And everything in nature is magical, and offers a way to clear. But I started to hum, hum, and I could feel the cells in my body start to vibrate differently. And you can feel even your lips like tingle when you're humming, and they start to itch a little bit, which is kind of funny. But I was doing it, and as I did it longer and longer, the crying got quieter and quieter and quieter, and then eventually stopped altogether. And so then I continued to hum because I was like, this is amazing. And like, I was getting clear, the child was getting clear, the mother was having reprieve. And so it was just this beautiful experience, but it was an opportunity for me to take care of something in my experience that needed to be cleared. In that, you can see it as a large scale or a small scale, but it's also like when someone leaves their laundry on the floor and you walk by, it's in your experience. You can simply pick it up and take care of it, or you can be like, oh, they did it again, or that's annoying, or what, so we all have these opportunities always. Or the toy on the floor, you pick the toy up and you put it away, and you can talk to the child about cleaning up, but not imprinting your frustration on it, taking care of that ownership, that if anything that's in front of you that is out of balance, it is your whole responsibility to put back in balance. And so those were just a few things I wanted to share. Thank you.
Yes, that is brilliant. And you brought to mind that is so important that we pay attention. It's this idea that, when we're walking around our property and there's garbage on the ground, do we just walk past it? Or do we pick it up? Do we want to live in that kind of environment? It's that same idea. So thank you for bringing that forward as inspiration, because this is the energetic aspect of this. And yes, everything in nature is so magical, and it is always showing us the way. It is always showing us a way. It is constantly clearing, whether it's the tornado, whether it's the river, whether it's a rainstorm that's coming through. Nature is clearing. And so it's reminding us that we too have that opportunity to move the debris that's in our space, so that we can be restored to truth. And that's the protection. When we're operating in that highest frequency, like you did, Tiffany, with the young child, you became the dominant frequency by simply offering clearing techniques, by clearing yourself. And then guess what? Nature comes in, the bee comes in, and you're so, of course, aligned with the bees. So it's that sign that it comes forward, and it's that infinite. I kept seeing the figure 8 when you were speaking of that infinite dominant frequency of elevation is always clearing. So I loved that.
Certainly, ladies. I think that there's still slight lag on this end. Would you confirm for me?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to speak. You don't need to see me, because I got things to say. So first off, I love what you all were saying, and I want to chime back into some of the things that Tiffany was sharing about taking ownership, accountability, and responsibility. And many times we feel as what I have realized is that it is imperative for us to operate from a sense of power. We have to pop ourselves out of victimizer mode, like what we think the field is doing to us, or what we think someone is doing to us, and step back into the power of how we can influence the field. Remember when we were sharing earlier how we are receivers, we're broadcasters, we can broadcast something right back to the field. In the same way that Tiffany was broadcasting that humming high frequency sound and shifting the vibrational field, And we can do that through thought alone. One of the things that we teach, and this is kind of speaking to what Lauren was talking about, of how, like, in some cases, it's not necessarily clearing a property, it's how you carry yourself through the space. And realizing that sometimes, like, for example, one of the classic examples that I give is grocery stores. When we go into the grocery stores, there's a density in there. There's a density from, the rush, the anxiety. Oh, don't let you get into a long line. With only two cashiers on the register, and then there's stop forms of like, oh, why is this taking so long? And they're projecting it to the cashiers, and they're just doing their job. And so we're swimming in a sea of these things, but often people are like unconscious to it. It's like we see it, but we don't, it doesn't register how dense it is and how it impacts us. And so in some of our classes and techniques, we encourage, raise yourself into the highest possible vibration, bring yourself up to high frequency and hold it, and observe the field, by way of recognizing that you're not separate from the cashiers, you're not separate from the people who are complaining and disgruntled in the line, you're not separate from the grocery store that you're in. You are, as a matter of fact, you are that grocery store. That's how deep it is. And then when we collapse the walls of separation with the field, that's when the magic happens. Whether it's traffic, dealing with our families, or little babies, right? I'm not separate from the baby. I love that story because it's, again, like, it shows the influence that we can have. But ultimately, we can protect ourselves again by simply deciding, I'm not gonna allow myself to be susceptible. Like, I remember having this experience. I was in Home Depot, and the line started getting long, and they only had like one or two registers open, and the woman in front of me, she starts complaining, and I say to her, well, I choose not to complain. That's very powerless. So I'm just gonna stay in my happy place, and it is what it is. And it was funny because it corrected her. She decided, I'm actually, let me not do this. Just showing that this is a misuse of energy. But this is, again, what I was talking about. When you're coming from a victim mode, there is no power. When you come from strength, there's power, and that same strength can translate to influencing the greater field. But I truly feel that it comes back to knowing who and what you are. And when you know that you're not separate from the field, then that's like the open sesame. It's the gateway. Like, you can influence everything, whether it be through the modality of quantum light property clearing or through the coherent broadcasts through your decision. And then just watch. That's what I love. It's like, do it and just watch. Just sit back and watch. Everything will change. People's disposition, or like, for example, if I'm in a line will open up for me, for me to get myself out of that environment where I don't have to be susceptible to the suffering. Or I've even seen on roads where this is kind of segueing into another idea, where quantum light property clearing, we teach how to clear the path, and clearing the path is another form of protection. This idea of how you can work with your spiritual committee to clear the path of your day, venues that you know you're going to go into if you maybe didn't have the opportunity to clear it in full in its entirety. But you can do that, and miraculous things happen. And one of my favorite experiences is when I'm on the road, seeing the difference. Like, I'll be driving in one direction, I'll see all the traffic on the other side. It's like nobody behind me, barely anyone in front of me. I was like, oh, look at the clearing working. The clearing's working. And so this level of protection against the suffering of traffic, because this is manufactured. The anxiety, the pain that comes by way of commuting. And even if you do not know how to, or have not been taught how to clear the path, one of the ladies mentioned Ho'oponopono, whole responsibility. You can be doing Ho'oponopono while you got some instrumentals on, and watch that path clear. Watch the space open up. Watch things, miraculous things happen for you in the material world by way of what you are broadcasting from your being. So these ideas of, like, understanding who we are, I always go back to that because it's so foundational in recognizing that we are not separate.
I love all of that. And I had some thoughts that you brought forward, Tavares, is that is lifestyle. One of the things that you said, just even I was going back to the experience when you were sharing about standing in line and the woman in front of you started complaining and you made an affirmative, simple statement, I choose not to complain. And that is the understanding. I know in our property clearings, we clear out frequencies of complaining. We clear out those frequencies. And so this is also going back to the understanding of what we do as clearers, is we are the clearing. And for us to maintain this in our lifestyle, that's where other layers of protection come forward. So your willingness to uphold the truth, the integrity of the clearing in your direct experience of all that is you, not only is that your form of protection, but that's you operating as the clearer so that everyone else in your experience can catch on to that understanding, can feel into that. So, this idea of living out the clearing, that is the solution. That is the energy hygiene. That is the protection. The more congruent we are, the more open we are, the clearer we become. And so, this is an understanding that recently I've been leaning into with quantum light property clearing, is the understanding of the more congruent, the more I allow myself to engage in it in every experience, it opens up channels for information to come forward, for me to receive information, which is, oh, maybe, okay, don't go there. I understand that information. Oh, yes, you can go there, but go after 3 o'clock. Or all of this information that is just kind of that, what some of us would say, oh, maybe that's just an inkling. No, that's information coming forward to you. So to lean into that, and that is more abundant, the clearer we are. And the more we clear, or our spaces are clear, we receive that. And that's really part of the experience.
I'd like to jump back in on that, Lauren. The signal. The signal is so important. We've been speaking a lot about that. Lao Tzu has used that language, and we've been adopting it. And what we mean by the signal is, what's your level of receptivity to your guidance or to the divine, right? And sometimes we don't hear it. Sometimes we hear it and we dismiss it because we doubt it, or we, whatever the ego is, or the pull, or whatever's happening within us. But I have found that it is so imperative that everyone who is on this path, we strengthen the signal, but it does require making certain changes and adjustments in our lifestyle, where, for example, I have noticed, like, for me, I have to continually clear every day. I have to activate the light body. I have to activate the crown and the third eye, that the signal moves itself through the endocrine system. Like, if I don't, then it might be a little staticky. It might be a little fuzzy. You're like, wait, what's that guidance? Say that one more time. Can you say that? Can you turn that volume up? Because I didn't quite hear that. But what I have realized, though, is that as we familiarize ourselves, it becomes a beautiful process of, like, this is going to sound kind of funny. You all probably heard of the phrase, Jesus take the wheel. Well, it's not really Jesus. However, but we are allowing the divine intelligence to lead us, by way of trusting what that is. But that really happens by way of building the relationship. And some of it is really clearing the distortion that kind of impedes upon that signal. And sometimes that looks like making sure your space is clear, because the interference in the space could be offsetting the signal, or the interference in your light body could be offsetting the signal.
I have a story on that note, but before I begin, I just wanted to ask, did anyone else, Diane or Tiffany, did you want to say anything?
I just wanted to share a few things that you were saying, that all of you were saying. When you were talking about the lifestyle and clearing throughout the day and different things, raising up in light body and things, when it becomes automatic, when you trust yourself, it becomes automatic. It's like, oh, and what Tiffany had said earlier about being aware, you're aware of it, and it's like, oh, all right, let me do this right now. And so it is a lifestyle, and it just becomes part of who you are, and as you're going through things, because yes, I feel things and go, oh yes, all right, I need to change my perspective, because So much before, I used to say, oh, that person or that thing or whatever was having an issue or something. And it's like, okay, I know that it's a mirror of me. And so let me clear that in me, and then it clears up, as you did, Tiffany, with your humming and clearing whatever that was coming forward. So I love all these stories. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
I wanted to share briefly this idea of listening to the information as it comes in. And like what you just said, Lauren, it's not that sometimes we're like, oh, what is that? And we don't really pay attention to it. And we think it's just a random thought, but it's actually information coming in. And Jade and I were driving home from school one day, I think, and she from a class, and it was a nutrition class that she was taking, and she was showing me what they had done, and they had made mushrooms out of Play-Doh. I'm like, hold on a second. You made mushrooms out of Play-Doh in a nutrition class? Which, okay, maybe, you learn how to construct the mushroom. I don't know. I thought that she was learning nutrition and they were cooking. they were, and so my immediate thought was something's not right in this moment. This can be different and better. Now, they didn't make things out of Play-Doh every day in nutrition class. Sometimes they made butternut squash and, all of the things. It was great. But for some reason that day, the information came through to me and I said to her, that this could be way better. I don't know why you're playing with Play-Doh in nutrition class. And she said, oh yeah, no, we need to do something different, Mom. So we came up with, on the way home, let's create a kids kitchen camp, summer camp this summer. And so, and I didn't know who was going to show up. Everyone already had all their camps planned, apparently. So we created this regardless for every day. It was this week, every day from 10 to 2. And all of the people who ended up joining, there were 17 kids who joined. Almost all of them were in previous camps. And of course, I'm clearing the whole day. I'm clearing the path of all of it, clearing interference patterns and blockages. All the other camps got canceled. So people who not only signed up, all the other camps where people got canceled, now they wanted to sign up. So we had such a large amount of children. I didn't know how I was going to navigate that. I mean, we were making like spring rolls, herbal marshmallows, but also like sourdough pasta. It was an intense camp. And I just kept clearing the path for what is in the highest and best interest of the children and of me to run this amazing camp. And everyone stepped up. Parents dropped kids off. Other parents stayed, helped, did dishes all day long throughout the camp. Older children of the kids who came to the camp stayed and did their service hours here and helped constantly. Every child, when they were finished cooking something or working on what they were working on, they were walking up to me asking how they could help, with the microgreens or with the sprouts or all the different components that we did. And it was constantly this amazing experience. And half of the children there tried to convince me that they were allergic to mushrooms or that they didn't eat seafood and all of these things, but the rule was they had to try everything. And by the end, every single kid had expanded their palate. Had this child today, who apparently doesn't eat any food of anything other than just 2 ingredients, ate sardines today with some mayonnaise and some rice and these little pinwheel wraps. And at the end, he said, this was the best class or camp ever. Can you please do this again sometime? Every kid's asked to do it. And it was just this buoyant, massive, incredible experience that was only brought forward because I heard that message. People have been telling me for 5 years that I should be running camps in the summer for kids. And I was like, that sounds like a good idea. Never until the information came in and I went with it. And then all of this help came forward to create the abundance experience. And then all of the children benefited from it. And now they're growing microgreens and sprouts as well. So it was just all of this to say that when the information comes in, it's coming in for a reason. And you might not know the reason I didn't know that this little boy who eats nothing is going to leave eating sardines. I mean, honestly, I thought I was buying salmon and it was sardines. And they tried it anyway. I mean, like it was just every step of the way just worked. And so I think that the takeaway is when information comes in, you don't always know the end result. But if you take a step forward on it, if you move into it, if you lean in to what that is and allow the potential of what can come from it develop, then, the sky's the limit. So I just wanted to share that experience. Thank you.
That's powerful. This is what it's about, strengthening and trusting. And uh, anyone who has taken quantum light property clearing has learned how to calibrate, how to receive yes and no information from their biology. And then they are taken to another level where the body becomes a bridge between them and their guidance, where you can get clear yes and no information. And what I have seen, and some of you all may have noticed this as well, is where that level of communication moves beyond just yes and no. Like it's a real relationship, right? And like we're learning to trust by way of building the signal. The more clear we are, the clearer we can hear the signal or the information. And no, we may not know, but in terms of like what the end product will be, sometimes you can inquire, say, hey, what's going to happen? But usually we're not inquiring like that. We're hearing things and like, okay. But like this idea of attuning to the frequency of trust, and what Tiffany is talking about, there's protection in that. There's protection in honoring the voice of your guidance, and listening versus being a rascal, know it all. You think you know it all. You think you've been there, done that, and go ahead and bump your head. It's all right. I've bumped my head so many times. I'm over here like, surrender. Surrender, let it go, because it's not worth it. This humility is required to like adhere to the signal, and to honor it. And it's a fascinating process, and I'm sure you all would agree. But I want to pull back a little bit, and I believe Lauren had a story that she wanted to share.
Yes, and it has everything to do with the signal. uh, because sometimes we silence the signal, and we have to allow ourselves to open up and expand and really look at that and get the understanding as to why we do that. Because if we do that, then we step out of our protection, right? And so I had an experience where I knew I needed to move. I knew for a while I needed to move. I'm a property clearer. I got the message, but I clearly was too comfortable. And I stayed in some resistance to the whole process. Well, oh, I'll just do it later. I'll just do it later. Oh, it'll show up. That I had this thought form. It'll just show up. I'll know when I need to move. Well, I already knew I needed to move. So I was making these excuses. Right? And so many of us do that. We get into these patterns of like, anyway, long story short, I knew for over a year. And I'm in a position, a new neighbor had moved into the house next to me, and I really didn't engage with him too much, but I had gotten this information, I could feel his energy, and it's not a frequency match. And so I would clear that in my clearings, right? But I didn't ask enough questions to be like, is this time to move now? Is this time to move now? Is this time to move now? One day, the universe aligned it so that I was outside watering my flowers, and he was outside actually with a bottle of vinegar killing his weeds. And I paid attention to that, and I thought, oh, what are you doing? And it started the conversation. I said, what are you doing there? And he said, well, these have to go. And I said, well, but they're beneficial. And he didn't want anything to hear about that. But then he started talking to me and sharing more experience that he liked guns. And where I am in Wisconsin, it's gun country. It's very much a thing, and many people have it, and there's shooting ranges everywhere. And so he shared with me that he frequently went and and that he made his own ammunition, and proceeded to tell me that in the house directly next to me, there was 300 pounds of gunpowder. And so I was calm and collected on the outside, but my inside was like, warning, 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 signal, signal, pay attention, Lauren. And I'm like, I got the message, I got the message, I got the message. And my like antenna must have gone like, boom. And I said, well, I have to go. And I went into the house and I cleared. I first went into gratitude because I knew this was my guidance. I knew this was quantum light property clearing. I knew this was an opportunity for me to also clear resistance and what was blocking me. And I went into the clearing, and part of the clearing was asking to clear the path for the safety of myself and my daughter and my dog, and to really bring to the forefront of my mind with that signal, with the clearing, a new space, because now I know I need to move, and I need to move like yesterday. So I proceeded in that path. Literally 2 days later, I'm driving around and I drive into a complex that was very close to where we were, but somewhere that I had always wanted to live and was engaged with it. And Olivia and I just kind of went through and we didn't see any for rent signs. And so I went back home, continued to clear. The next day, I look. Now, this is 3 days later. I look online and a listing in that complex opened up that morning. And my guidance said, call now. I called then, and the owner answered, and he said, well, we have one other person that called and was interested, but you can be second on the list. And so in my mind, I'm like, I'm clearing this. I'm gonna go deeper. And he called me later that day and said that person actually canceled their showing, that if I could come in that day, I would be first. And I was like, I can be there. So I showed up. Within 5 days, everything was in motion. The lease was signed. The space was available to me and Olivia. We moved all in a matter of 3 weeks. We had a new space. I was out. The lease that I had was currently month to month. There was no interference with the company that had the lease beforehand. They actually wanted me to move because they wanted to sell the house. So to see all of this coming forward, it was such an understanding for me to go deeper, to check self, because everything we need always shows up for us. Are we paying attention? And then when we allow ourselves to receive the information, again, that idea, what do we do about it? I knew to go into the understanding of clearing. And it had to start with clearing self. And then myself is the property. So at some level, my resistance attracted this negative experience to literally move in next door to me, for me to see me, to clear that negativity out and get myself going and to become aligned with truth. And so the work works when we work it, right? We say this a lot. So to go into this understanding of being clear so that the clearing could come forward to operate in its truth, in its fullness, as the protection that it is meant to be, because that could have gone another way if I didn't stay clear or clear myself. So this is the solution, and it is our protection. It brings forward what we need.
Lauren, this is a beautiful story. It's so multifaceted, and it touches on all the different compartments or aspects of being a clearer, from clearing in and of itself to getting information, but even the trial and error and the pitfalls of not listening. When we know how to listen, but then sometimes there's interference. We have our own fear, our own insecurities or issues that impede upon the signal. And then also, one of my favorite parts about this is how you cycle back toward the end of the story and identified that what you were seeing in that wild neighbor, the gunpowder, that's wild. If he told me that, I'm like, look, man.
That cannot be
Are you all right?
legal.
What are you
breaking the law?
What you preparing for? But anywho, the point is that you saw the right in it. You saw that I know this is a little creepy, but this is serving me.
Yes.
And this is an important position to have when we are confronted with things that is kind of scary. That I could, if I was you in that position, I would be a little startled. Like, whoa, this is weird. And taking the signal, taking the information, what is this communicating to me? What is this informing me? And this is again coming from a place of power, from a place of strength versus like continuing to shake in your boots or buckle like a baby deer. So this is such a powerful experience, and thank you, Lauren. I want to touch on something else that someone mentioned in the comments, but before I do, anyone else had any other thoughts or comments on Lauren's story?
Can I just say, add one line to what you just said is there could be no fear. There could be no fear for the next part of the process. If I operated in fear from hearing what was next door to me, I would not be able to clear. I would not be able to move, right? It wouldn't have worked. It was this idea of the trust and the knowingness that I decided, okay, thank you, move into gratitude for that. But if I had that fear and gave in to that, it would have completely collapsed. So that was very important what you had said of not feeling any way about it, just moving into the experience of knowing, okay, it's time to go.
Yeah.
Well, because I also think that when you start to feel that emotion of fear, right? There's that saying, "What you fear, you draw near." So if you would have immediately allowed the fear to overtake you, who knows what would have happened with all of this gunpowder next to you? Who knows what levels of explosiveness you would have attracted. Now, it doesn't even have to be explosiveness from the gunpowder, right? But it's the fear of the explosiveness of it that could then bring other things to you that could combust in those ways, right? And so I think that it's so valiant and brave, but also just who you are as a clearer, right? That you see it and you recognize you have the solution to change it. Every experience that I have, whether it's been in my neighborhood, whether it's been with, classes that I have taught, with places that we've gone, with birthday parties, whatever it is, I always know that clearing is the solution to bring about the result, the desired result, right? The result that is in our highest and best interest. And so moving through all aspects of life with that mindset that clearing is a solution, whether you're clearing the space itself and you know how to do that, whether you're clearing your own thoughts, so when you're stepping, with every step that you take, you're imprinting the positive instead of the negative, whether you're ho'oponoponoing when you're looking at the trees, so the air that it's releasing for you to breathe, to fill yourself up with life is clear. It transcends to any single thing we want to say, but recognizing that to all ailments, to all incongruencies, to all low vibrational experiences, clearing is always the solution.
Yes.
Certainly. I want to chime in on a comment that we have, and it's going to segue into an idea that goes back to taking accountability. And it's a concept that expands the concept of protection as a clearer, especially when we look at the time that we're in. Clearing is one of the modalities that will help secure us in these times of uncertainty, whether it be, we got geoengineering happening. There's wars happening. There's things of that nature, and ensuring that when we clear, we kind of move our environment out of resonance with those type of unwanted experiences. So we have a comment from Theodora Anderson. She says, "I've decided to take ownership of my neighborhood. I'm not able to clear the neighborhood, but I clear my house and my neighbors' houses. I send the neighborhood the animals I come across in Lakesh because me taking ownership makes me want to take care of it even more." So this is something that we have encouraged clearers to adopt. Yeah, everybody's like, "Yay, confetti," because that's no small thing. It's not a small thing to say, you know what? Let me clear more than just my space. right? And this is really stepping into a level of spiritual maturity when you recognize that, again, who are you? I asked you all in the comments earlier, who, or the chat, who are you? When you realize who you are, it's like, oh man, I'm all that is. So I got to take care of more of me, and there's more responsibility. And so this idea of when you are clearing, and then you clear your home, and then you realize, okay, there's probably some ruckus going on down the street. Let me take care of that. But really, that you extend beyond just your physical body. You are non-local. You are an emissary of all that is. And by way of that truth, the natural inclination is, let me address more. Let me address my neighborhood, especially when you see the protection that comes forth. And that's the thing. It's I think that most people require seeing it within their own experience, the power. And I know for me, it was like, ooh, what else can I do? Oh, I can clear my neighborhood. I can stop domestic abuse. I can influence that and raise the field up. People can pop out and move out of the neighborhood because of the clearing, making it more safer and harmonized. What? And so this is truly spiritual maturity. But humans, especially in the States, we do not operate in a way where we feel inclined to, like, picking up behind another person. Or I think one of you all mentioned it earlier, like trash on the floor, and you see something and you pick it up. And like, we live in apartments, and it's like, that's not my trash, or I don't own this. So that same type of behavior is what has allowed the planet to move into the condition that we find it currently by way of this behavior. So there is a funny little story. Lauta shared this with me. We all know that the FIFA World Cup is going on. So in Dallas, Japan and Sweden were playing against each other. And what was wow is that there were, like, I think 3,000 bags, or people or Japanese people specifically, that after the game was over, they began picking up their trash. People in the stadium were astonished. Security guards, I have an actual note here. Uh, Security guard at the Dallas stadium said he'd never seen a section so spotless after Japan and Netherlands played last week. And then one of the Japanese, they said, it's part of our nature to clean up after our mess. I said, come on now. I know that's right. It's part of my nature. And that's the truth of who we are. When we think about who we are, I'm often talking about the torus field in the classes, and, like, this cyclical field, and every organism, every living thing has this field with this mechanic that's restorative, rejuvenative. The water cycle moves like this. The same water that's been here, it goes through the process of renewal. And that mechanic, ideally, if we're not working against it, it would show up through our actions, how we take care of our homes, our spaces, our communities. So it is really a maturity of ownership of who you are and embodying it. And again, this is an opportunity that becomes available through quantum light property clearing. But then there's power backed up, there's protection in it, knowing that you can raise the field of your home and others, because it is all your field. So that was another thought that I wanted to share, inspired from Theodora and the story that Lauta had shared with me about the Japanese. You can get some of that. The Japanese are doing over there. Honor, respect, and gratitude to them.
Yes, that is so wonderful. We all need to adopt that idea that it's our nature to be clean and to do that. Thank you for bringing that forward. So we are about at our time. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to share tonight? Or
Well,
I know we
surprised
can.
we didn't keep going.
We can keep going.
No. I want to honor the time, but I will say this: we have a couple of clears on the line. I want to make a quick announcement.
Yes.
On the first Thursday of July, pull this up. Actually, correction. I'm going to email you all, actually, because in the month of July, we're looking to do a pop-up. complimentary pop-up class for the Quantum Light property clearers. We've had quite a few clearers who have taken at least the level 1 within the recent year. So making sure that there's an opportunity for any questions that you all have, any experiences that you want to bring forth. And then also we're going to ensure that everyone's pacing with the same clearing language, the most latest and effective language. And then also opening opportunity to update you all with other classes, because one of the things we have going on this year is a level 2 property clearing class. And then we're also doing the auxiliary courses with vehicle clearings, travel clearings. We've just completed device clearings, which was awesome. Diane was in that class as well. We're doing vehicle clearings. Go ahead, Diane. You like, don't hold back.
I'm sorry. It was so expansive for me, the device clearing class, because you brought forward many, many things that we need to address with our devices. Not only the physical part, but there were 7 different layers that you brought forward. The physical, the human part. What about the electronic, the I can't remember what the name of it was, but all the internet coming, the EMFs, all that, the apps that are on your phone, all the people that are part of that, and uh, your your modem, how to clear that, bring forward all that information that's coming in your modem. And it was so expansive, and you had such beautiful, beautiful visuals of all the different physical parts. And in detail, you had the summary of the 7 steps, but then each of those 7 steps, you went into such detail, and it was so wonderful, because there were so many things. I had thought of a few things, but not in that depth before. And the first day that I did that on my devices, oh my goodness, I could feel the lightness coming through and the ease of moving through my laptop or my phone. And so I'm very grateful for that. I'm looking forward to the vehicles next. So thank you. Thank you, Tavares.
Oh, it's such a pleasure and an honor. Thank you, Diane, for sharing your review, your live review and testimony of the class. And the thought I would leave with those who are tuning in is that we do not have to be a victim of the things that we're experiencing on the earth plane. We do not. There are tools out there. There's power in clearing, and there are varying levels and degrees of participating with that reality. But as the Japanese guy said, it's part of our nature. It's part of your nature. You take showers, just expand yourself a bit. Take an energetic shower. You clean your house, do an energetic cleaning on your house. It's the same concept. And again, I think Lauren mentioned it earlier, lifestyle. And this is part of the lifestyle, because as we become more aware, we realize that much of what we interface with in this reality is anti-life. It is really not supporting us. And we could always go into the nuance of that, but I'm sure you all get the picture. And so this is one of the reasons why we're here out of the sun, we introduce clearing at the most foundational basic level, all the way to the deeper levels for people who really get it and value it. And there are no limits. Just like Diane said, it was so intricate. Yeah, everything's intricate like that, but it's a simplistic complexity, because once you learn the foundations, it's easy. Especially if your brain's like pattern recognition, you can start seeing the connection. You're like, ooh, I can do this over here. Ooh, I wonder what else I can do with clearing. Oh, I can clear this, and that. And so it's really your world, squirrel. It just kind of depends on where you want to take it. But so again, Quantum Light property clearers, be on the lookout. We're going to send you an email in particular. And for anyone who's looking to learn the modality, you can take some of our entry-level courses, such as Energy Hygiene 101, Energetic Protection and Defense. Much of what was discussed in this live stream, you can learn in those entry-level classes that don't require prerequisites. And then on top of that, you can get clearing services, property clearing. We have Tiffany of the Sun, Lauren of the Sun, Diane of the Sun. All of these people are professional clearers. They make it do what it do. So if you If there's something strange in your neighborhood, who you gonna call? I saw a Ghostbuster sticker yesterday, and I immediately thought of us. I was like, "Yep, that's us. That's us." And it's real, and it's beautiful. We're in a beautiful time because most of the general public is now catching up to these levels of reality. Everyone on the line has been clearing for years, and the concept has been rather fringe. And even people who have been in spirituality or on their journeys, getting accustomed to the concept of non-locality and like, you don't have to come to my house, like that's been a hurdle, but like we're in the pocket right now. So it's a perfect time for anybody who's looking to learn this, make a business out of it, or if you're just looking to protect yourself, your family, your neighborhood, you want to raise up the earth plane, the vibrational field, by way of influencing the morphic fields that are influencing the people. Join in on the party. You can book a discovery call with us. Just visit the ofthesun.com website, a free discovery call to find out how to get started. So that's essentially what I had.
Well, thank you, everyone who joined, and thank you, Tavares and Lauren and Tiffany. This was wonderful, and we look forward to seeing you next month with another robust session. Thank you. And Lakesh and Veritas with honor, respect, and gratitude, integrity, discipline, and action.
Lakesh and Veritas.
And Lakesh and
Honor, respect,
Veritas.
gratitude,
Honor, respect, and gratitude.
integrity, discipline.